With Bandai recently announcing the English version of the Digimon Vital Bracelet, what better time to talk about the best DIM cards?
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my video on the best DIM cards for the Digimon Vital Bracelet, or as it is to be known as the Vital Hero in English. So, a little context I think is important because I've never really talked about the Vital Bracelet. You may have seen me wearing one or both of the ones I own in a video, and it may have come up in an unboxing, but I've never done a dedicated video on it, so some context is required for those who are here at the channel wondering, what the heck is a Vital Bracelet? And I figure, why not? I love doing history. So if you do want to skip to the best DIM card part of this, if you want to know all that, I'll put some timestamps in the description and in the timeline along the bottom in case you don't need the history lesson. But if you want the history lesson, let's go through it. So Digimon itself started as a virtual pet, or a V-pet, where you'd essentially just raise Digimon. The way that it worked was you had to feed them, you had to put them in bed, you had to take care of them. It was important to the care and the raising of the Digimon. And the stronger the Digimon got, the better it could battle against other Digimon, you know, in a multiplayer sense if you had two of them or if you had a friend. So it was a basic concept, but it was the start of everything Digimon. In fact, the first Digimon Adventure movie was based on this before they went into the digital world and had all their cool adventures. And this has been sort of a popular thing for a long time, and the virtual pets are still going. There's ones like the Digimon X that just got an English release recently, which, hey, that's just an evolution of that basic V-Pet concept. Now, when people think of V-Pets for Digimon, they may think of Digivices. And with Digivices, they're a little different. Because Digivices are essentially, you know, especially with this one being based on Digimon Adventure, you have a pedometer. So as it moves the steps along for the Digimon's journey, and then he runs into battles. Now, with the Digimons inside here, they don't need to be fed. They don't need to be really taken care of. They just need to battle to progress the game. So, well, if we have this, and we have this as our two staples of Digimon toy technology, what if we merged them together? And that's where you get the Vital Bracelet. So, let's briefly talk about the Vital Bracelet. So the Vital Bracelet was first released in March of 2021 in Japan, and it was released in 3 different colors. There was a black, a white, and this special yellow band version that was exclusive to Premium Bandai and came with an exclusive DIM card. Now this release was pretty good. As you can see, I have had a Vital Bracelet special since release, in fact. Looking at the device, it's a pretty simple thing. I mean, it is an armband. It looks like a Fitbit, but it doesn't quite work like one. I think, you know, initially the marketing for this was like, oh, be with your Digimon, go out and exercise, train your Digimon kind of thing. Which ultimately that's not really what it does. For example, there will be little missions in it where it asks you to do punches, and you can do punches and it'll complete the mission, or you can just shake your wrist a whole lot, and that does the same thing. So it's more of a Digivice. Now that being said, it is pretty nice because it does have a color screen, which the color screen concept actually started with the Crossloader from Digimon Cross Wars. It had a color screen, and you got to choose when to do your battles. No pedometer. So in the way, the Vital Bracelet is almost more of an evolution of the Crossloader than anything. But that being said, you know, no disrespect to any previous V-Pets, but for a lot of people, the Vital Bracelet isn't a V-Pet so much as it is a Digivice. And more appropriately, there was an upgraded model of the Vital Bracelet released coming around October 2021, and that Vital Bracelet happened to coincide with the brand new anime, Digimon Ghost Game. And naturally, of course, the Digivice-V was released because this is the Digivice for the kids in Digimon Ghost Game. Now, the Digivice-V is actually an improved Vital Bracelet in many ways because it contains upgraded features. First of all, it's not trying to track your heart rate to raise your Digimon. It's just sort of tracking to see if you're wearing it, which is a great improvement. I think the idea of it's a fitness Digimon item really got carried away because they didn't have the technology to put it into a device that cost roughly $65. So it just didn't work. But they sort of reworked it and changed the firmware, so now it's just detecting if you're wearing it more so than if your heart rate is fast enough. Because with, well, as much as I love this one, I would be sitting still and my Digimon would be dying because apparently I wasn't doing anything. Or I could be walking but at a slow pace, and my Digimon would be losing vital points. Now, there's a lot of complexities to the game itself, and that's not really what this video is about, because, well, that would require a whole other video and more in-depth on that. But when it comes down to it, the original Vital Bracelet was a great start, but the Digivice-V was a great upgrade. Now, where do we get to Vital Hero? So Vital Hero is the English release of the Digivice Vital Bracelet. And what I mean by that is it's actually the Digivice-V programming in a shell that looks like the original Vital Bracelet because it has the Digital Monster logo on it. They also happen to feature the expanded armbands, which were a separate premium Bandai item in Japan that would make the band length a lot longer. For me, this works because my wrists are kind of small. In fact, hard to tell on camera, but I can go to the third peg from the end. These fit me, but they may not fit everybody, so I'm glad to see the expanded bands as the default with the Vital Hero. The Vital Hero also is pretty much the same device otherwise. It says that they have the Digivice-V programming as confirmed by Bandai, and that's a good thing because it has the best, most up-to-date firmware. There's a black band and a blue band. The black band version comes with the Pulsemon DiM card, which is what the original first Vital Bracelet release came with. And the blue band Vital Hero comes with the new Wolf Howl DiM card, which is actually the fusion of two other DiMs. Now, there is some differences in how they're being portrayed, but for the most part, these devices are very similar. In fact, they've even confirmed that English DiM cards and Japanese DiM cards will work in the opposite devices. And the only thing that's going to be different is some of the language options. While there is English text for each of these little symbols on the Digivice-V programming, when you click something like Digimon, you can see there is Japanese text for the name and the type. And, you know, that part's fine, that part's fine, that part's fine. It's just when you get here and you click here to see the names, there is no English whatsoever. It is strictly Japanese. And while that's not a big deal for some, it may be a big deal to others. For me, it's not too much of a problem. So as you can see on my Vital Bracelet, you don't get the Digimon name in English because I'm using the Japanese technology for both the DiM card and the bracelet. But since the DiM cards are a heavily important item, this won't be an issue if you have a Japanese Vital Bracelet and want one of the English DiM cards. But I think you're probably wondering at this point, what the heck is a DiM card? This is a DiM card. As you can see, it's a nice plastic piece that holds a small chip. And this small chip is the vital, important piece of the Vital Bracelet, because this contains all of the Digimon data for the VB. What's great about this piece of technology is that you can put any DiM card into it, whether it's the version 1 or the Digivice-V or the Vital Hero, and this will load the Digimon to that device, temporarily. Essentially, the Vital Bracelet itself doesn't store any data. It just keeps whatever DiM card is currently active until you turn it off. And that's actually kind of neat because this essentially means they can make DiM cards forever and it'll work on any of these. Now, of course, there's going to be upgrades in technology, as we've seen with the Digivice-V being a better overall device. It has a sleep mode. That's one of the best things about it. The DiM cards are actually the most robust Digimon VPET or Digivice we've ever seen because you can just get another DiM card and there's a whole bunch more Digimon that you can just add into your device. Now, there is some downside. Like I said, the device doesn't store too much data. In fact, you can hold 2 Digimon at max. There is an active Digimon, and you can put one in a backup slot. So essentially, if you're trying to do a DNA Digivolution or a Jogress evolution, for example, trying to put Wargreymon and Metal Garurumon together to make Omnimon, you have that option by basically backing up one of them, which will store some of the data, and then keeping another one active. It can get a little tricky swapping these around, and you're going to need some help because while as robust as the Vital Bracelet is on its own, it's heavily reliant on the Vital Bracelet app. So I'm going to show the app briefly because I feel like this is a very important thing for the Vital Bracelet because the app itself is essentially key to keeping track of more than just like your 1 or 2 Digimon. Because while, you know, normally you don't need an app for something like a Digivice, you do kind of need it here. For example, while you can hold 2 Digimon on the device, here's all the ones I've trained. So there's quite a few. In fact, I'm still working on evolving some of these. But a lot of these are megas that I've fully trained, and there's nothing else to do with them besides use them for battles. And you can do all kinds of stuff on here, but the basics is that you get to access all the DIM cards you have, and it basically does store your Digimon. And you can back it up. There's a Bandai Namco ID link in the settings, which I think is highly recommended. And specifically, you can do online battles. So with the stuff here, it's kind of neat that we have this app functionality. Now, this may not work on all devices because, well, devices are funny like that. I'm running an iPhone 8 and it runs perfectly fine. And the biggest thing is that to transfer the Digimon, you need in near field communication or NFC. With iPhones, it's weird. There's no like a button to just turn it on, turn it off. But with the app, it does activate it. And you can essentially transfer your Digimon to your Vital Bracelet. But you always want to make sure you have the DIM card. Just because you loaded it once doesn't mean it's loaded forever. Whatever is the current DIM card is what's on there. And then when you put another DIM card on, it overwrites that, which is why the app is a good backup. So yeah, I mean, that's the basics of it without going through the very long process of transferring. So the Vital Bracelet does work on its own. The DIM cards work with it, but the way you kind of keep going and progressing is really this app. So it's kind of a fancy high-tech thing, but at the same time, you know, if you can't do the app part, this may not be as worth it because you're going to be limited to what you can do. But this thing is really cool, even on itself. But yeah, we're here to talk about DIM cards. I just wanted to give a brief overview, so let's talk about the DIM cards. So with all that said, let's talk about the best DIM cards. In my personal opinion, obviously, I own nearly every DIM card. The only one I'm missing is Shadow Howl, because that was a promotional DIM, and while I don't technically need it because I have True Shadow Howl, which is the expanded version, it still would be nice to have in my collection one day, but it goes for insane prices, and I pretty much never expect to get one at this point. But I have all the DIM cards released up to the recording and release of this video, which is this date on screen. If it is after this date on screen and you're wondering, why aren't the Frontier DIMs here? Why aren't some crazy unreleased DIMs here? Because they didn't come out yet. So this date is when this video came out, and this date has the most updated we could be on the DIM cards. Now, of course, this is meant to guide the new fans that may be looking at the English release wondering, which DIM cards do I get? Which ones should I import? Which one should I wait for an English release? And that's essentially what this guide is. But if you've also been running with a VB for a while and wondering what I think are the best ones, this can also be helpful. So I broke this down into several categories. This isn't a top 10 or anything. I thought, let's just do the best of each type of DIM card so that we have a guide as to what we're talking about. So while I don't think there's any bad DIM cards, before we talk about the best ones, I want to talk about ones to avoid. Specifically, the ones you see in front of you, but we'll discuss why. If you're looking for any of the rosters of these DIM cards, I recommend checking out a website called Humilos. They have a whole database on Vital Bracelet stuff as well as Digimon V pets, and I highly recommend it. It's where I got a lot of information on how to digivolve some of these guys, especially before the app had English support. But in terms of, you know, looking for the rosters, I recommend checking out their website. They have everything listed, including DIM cards that haven't even come out yet, so they're pretty handy. But in terms of DIM cards, first of all, we have Black Roar. I'd say don't ever pick up Black Roar nowadays. Black Roar was a promotional item given to the first people who purchased the Vital Bracelet in Japan. And essentially, yeah, it's a single Digimon evolution line, and that is Black Agumon / Black War Greymon. And, you know, it just goes from there. Now, if you're wanting Black War Greymon, you can pick up the Mad Black Roar, which is a full DIM card with multiple evolution paths. If I put, you know, a side-by-side up here of what their paths are, you can see that my Black Roar comes with a lot more. And I just say avoid Black Roar altogether. Now, the other ones I would avoid are the DIM card GPs, and that's what these are. So GP, or Gashapon, is the official acronym. This was something that was so terribly executed that fans in Japan got so upset that Bandai canceled their plans to do any more of these. Essentially, much like Black Roar and Shadow Howl, where they have a single evolution line, these GP DIM cards had a single evolution line. So Guilmon here simply has, you know, Guilmon from baby all the way up to Gallantmon, but you had 3 options of Gallantmon. That's not a whole lot, considering all of these were premium Bandai exclusive. And the worst part is it's not like, oh, you go on premium Bandai, yeah, I'll just buy the Guilmon one, or I just want the Impmon one. No, they were random. They were a premium Bandai random item. Absolute madness and chaos. And I think Bandai's been trying to make up for it ever since. So for example, I would say don't get the GP Guilmon DiM card, get the EX Guilmon DiM card. It has pretty much all the Digimon in there, minus one of the Gallantmon variants, but you get much more and a better value, and this was a retail release. Same goes for Renamon. Skip the GP version, get the EX one. If you're wanting a Renamon's evolutions, the EX is the way to go. For Impmon, while you will lose on some Beelzemon forms, don't worry about that. Get Dynasty of the Evil, which is a much better DiM card. The only one that's kind of left out here is Monodramon. So if you really love Justamon or Cyberdramon, and you really, really love Monodramon, it would be worth tracking down because a lot of the Digimon in here haven't been reprinted in any other DiM cards. But you might also want to wait it out because eventually they might just reprint it, considering how, well, the rest of these have gotten better versions. So that's just my guide of the worst / ones to avoid. But let's talk about what are the best DiM cards. So this next category is going to be the best premium Bandai released DiM. Now this one's got a lot of asterisks to it. Premium Bandai, of course, being a website in Japan that sells exclusive product, much of which has been brought over for Premium Bandai US for, the US customers, as well as the fact that a lot of the Digimon stuff comes over despite other brands not getting it. Looking at SH Figuarts in particular. But with Digimon, we've pretty much gotten all these, minus some of them. So it's kind of wishy-washy about the release. So I didn't want to recommend these too high because these are going to be harder to get. Hence why the runner-up is Ancient Warriors. Ancient Warriors is a DiM card that features the lineup of Vmon from the anime, pretty much with some extras added in. This is a great lineup with things like Flamedramon, to Lydramon, to Magnamon, to Imperial Dramon in both Dragon and Fighter mode. It's a packed DiM card, and it's honestly really cool. The unfortunate part is it was exclusive to the Vital Bracelet Special, that yellow banded version I mentioned earlier. If you didn't get this version of it, you can't get this DiM card otherwise, and that's why it's the runner-up. Now, in terms of my favorite and what I say is the best P-Bandai release, it's Primeval Warriors, which is essentially the companion to Ancient Warriors because this is the Stingmon evolution line DiM card, which also features Imperial Dramon Paladin mode, which edges it out for sure. It also was released in a pack with a carrying case, this one being a recolor of one that came out general retail. It can hold 5 DiM cards. It's neat. I like using these things just to keep the ones that I'm currently running, and it makes it easier to get because this is a less expensive package from the get-go than a whole other Vital Bracelet. But still being P-Bandai, can't be too up on the recommendation list, but it's the easiest one to get of some of the P-Bandai releases. So I definitely recommend it because it's got a solid lineup of Digimon. Now there are anime-based DiM cards, and specifically Ghost Game has gotten some anime-based ones. My best recommendation of those? Gammamon. Because while Jellymon and Angoramon are nice and have good lineups for what they are, Gammamon has more anime-specific lineup than the other two because of his multiple champion forms, being 4 of them. So honestly, when you're looking for a Ghost Game DiM card, if you want one that's got more anime Digimon in it than the others, it's going to be Gammamon. And the nice part is while it was packed in with the Digivice-V, you could buy it separately, which they really need to do for Pulsemons, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it would be something you can easily get even if you're importing it because of the lower price and because it was single packed. So honestly, you can't go wrong with Gammamon for the Ghost Game DiMs, simply because he's got 5 extra Digimon forms. So while I do recommend the Gammamon DiM, it's going to have less Digimon on it than some of the others, so it may not have the same value. But it's Gammamon, so if you love the little guy, you can't go wrong with his DiM card. Going alongside that, the other anime DiMs are the EX series. Now these have more than the Ghost Game DiMs, by far, but not as much as some of the other more traditional DiM cards. But once again, I'm going to recommend the best of them. That being Terriermon. Terriermon was also a single release that came out alongside Guilmon and Renamon. They made a nice little Tamers Trio set, and you can get Terriermon on its own, and it was general retail. And the reason why I picked Terriermon over the others is essentially what they did for the Tamers DiMs is they gave them all their forms from the anime and then beefed up the DiMs by adding in characters like the Devas and other Digimon you would expect from Tamers. But with Terriermon, they added in Lopmon's evolutions, such as Antilomon, and that really adds to it because then you get more recognizable main Digimon in one single DIM card. Now, unfortunately, while we've gotten DIM cards now coming up with the Frontier DIMs and the English release DIMs having 2 rookie forms, the Terriermon DIM came out before that trend happened, or they started doing that, so there's no Lopmon as well. That would have been nice, but even on its own, it's still a really good DIM card that has a lot of recognizable Digimon, which I think is very important for people getting into the VB. Now, several DIM cards are pack-ins with other items, and for the best pack-in, I'm going to put the runner-up choice as Impulse City or Pulse City. So Impulse City was the Japanese name, and it came with all the version 1 Vital Bracelets, the black, white, and the special. And in the English release, it's coming with the black banded one, and it's known as Pulse City. Don't know why the name change. Seems to be the same lineup of Digimon, however. Now, this is one of the best DIM cards in terms of uniqueness, because all of the Digimon on here are new for the Vital Bracelet. A lot of them are based on sports. You have one based on swimming, one on bike riding, one on bodybuilding. So it sort of went with that original idea of the Vital Bracelet being sort of a fitness device. Even if that ultimately isn't what it became, it has that original intention. And it is featuring the mascot, Pulsemon, as the DIM card itself. Now, unfortunately, you can't get this separately, even though there's people that bought the Digivice-V that can't get the Impulse City DIM card because it was packed in with a different version of the device that was categorically inferior. So when it comes down to it, the Pulsemon DIM card, Impulse City, is great, but you have to buy a specific version of Vital Bracelet to get it, and I wish there was a single release, either in the Japanese or English, to accommodate that. Now, for what I think is the best pack-in, Dynasty of the Evil. Now, this DIM card features a lot of the darker and magical Digimon. You have Wizardmon, you have Beelzemon. There is multiple different types of dark Digimon and magical Digimon in here, and it's all banger hit of a list. It's really just your awesome little DIM card. And the thing is, too, is it came out around Halloween time, it was perfect. Now, the only thing that you have to buy to get this is one of those carrying cases, which, again, holds 5 DIM cards. So not the worst thing in the world. I would like to see something like this, maybe for the English release that holds a few more. But if you had to buy this to get one of the coolest DIM cards ever, that's not a bad wrap at all. So you don't have to buy a whole device like you do for Impulse City or Pulse City. It's just a little carrying case, which is actually pretty handy if you want to use it. And you get one of the best DIM card lineups of the entire Vital Bracelet project. So now we're on to the best standard DIM card. These are the DIM cards that have the most on it and are more based on VPET characters from past and future. So it is sort of the standard releases of DIM cards. And these usually come in 2 packs, but I'm going to highlight specific ones just specifically. First of all, my runner-up, Blizzard Fang. Now, not the most popular DIM card because the rest of its Digimon are not as notable, but this has the Blucomon lineup, which Blucomon is a Digimon that debuted, I think in a Chinese mobile game or something like that. He's not like one of your traditional introduction Digimon, but because of the card game and this DIM card, he sort of rolled himself in to be one of the major mascots of the franchise. And I think his evolution line is one of the coolest, pun intended, lineups of Digimon. And for that, Blizzard Fang is definitely worth picking up. However, I found myself not really going and doing the other evolution paths. I mostly just stuck to Blucomons. And that's why it's the runner-up. But when we talk about what's made the best DIM cards, variety, notoriety, powerful Digimon types, things you would recognize, I think none does it better than New Metal Empire. Because New Metal Empire features a lot of characters from Cross Wars, such as the 2010 Metal Greymon, Male Bergermon, and all the way up to Zeke Greymon. It also features Ballistamon, who is another Cross Wars character, and his upgrades. Then you also have things like Heavy Leomon is in here. You got Locomon, Grand Locomon, even Machine Dramon. These are versions of characters as well as characters that are highly recognizable, but more importantly, there's not a boring Digimon in this entire DIM. And that I think is important because with the others, you sort of have some really positive ones, really great ones, but then you have some other ones that are just not as exciting and you don't ever feel like evolving to them. Whereas I feel like New Metal Empire is absolutely worth completing every single step of the way, and that is what makes it the best standard DIM card and probably the best DIM card overall. So that does it for my video of the best DiM cards. Now, if you have any questions about the Vital Bracelet or the DiM cards or anything else, leave them in the comments down below and let me know. Also, tell me what your favorite DiM card is if you have one. And let me know you want to see more Vital Bracelet videos or Digimon videos on the channel by hitting the like button. That'll give me a good barometer of, hey, did you enjoy this? More so than just you watched it, but did you actually enjoy it? Hit that like button and let me know. And share the video around, because you've got somebody that wants to know more about the Vital Bracelet, the DiM cards, just the overall thing. I'm hoping this video is a good primer and can be useful to you and your friends. Also be sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell to keep up with future uploads, and please check out other videos on the channel, not just Digimon, but other types of videos. There's a wide variety of content here. Also be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for news and more, and my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.